So what was it again? The Pocon vegetable garden furniture. I mean, fertilizer.
I kept on doing that myself.
It's one of those things.
Hi.
Well, you know, blondes, we have fun. What can we say? And especially when we're both two gardening blondes, and that's what we're doing today, is teaching you a little bit about bulbs and about vegetables. I'm Melanie.
I'm Linda, and I'm from Sought After Seedlings, and I'm going to talk about vegetable seeds. And Mel's going to teach you everything about bulbs and how they can be companions.
Yep. So when it comes to bulbs and it comes to pretty much anything you grow, they all have their own season. And specifically with bulbs, for me, it's always about making sure that you're planting spring flowering bulbs at the right time of the year, because otherwise the temperatures are just too hot. And I imagine that you have exactly the same problem when it comes to vegetables.
Yes, absolutely. People do things like planting tomatoes in winter, and it really doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we've got a few things here, like mixed radish. They're absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful kale, stunning red cabbage, and we've got some seedlings here that are also winter crops. There's actually over 36 varieties of things to plant in winter. It actually comes to about 40. I used to know the list off by heart.
Yeah.
There's no ways now.
The list is too long. In the same way, at least I have all the pictures here because they're on the front. So when it comes to your spring flowering bulbs, okay, we call them winter bulbs because we plant them at the beginning of winter when the ground temperatures have dropped. And that's a very important thing when it comes to planting your bulbs. You cannot have them in the soil when the ground temperature is too warm, because otherwise they are not going to grow properly. So we're looking at round about in South Africa, the second week of May. That's the time that I do it, when it's too cold for me to sit on the floor and be comfortable because it's too cold on the bum. And would you have the same thing?
I love that. Yes. No, too cold gets, middle April. Mm-hmm. It's already too cold to plant your seed.
Yeah.
But you can still go for seedlings. Yeah. But the weather is crazy. I mean, it felt like it went from summer to winter with no autumn.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
That does happen.
You need that kind of lead in.
So don't be too quick to get things going, okay? Take your time. All right, so let's just get in. We've got a couple of different varieties. I'm going to talk about the exotics first. The one that is probably one of the favorites around the world, which are daffodils. And they are bringing out the most incredible varieties. I'm loving this pale yellow, and it's a double, and I can't wait to see these growing in my garden, to be honest with you. They're so easy to look after. Then we get into, where are my other favorites? We've got so many different ones here. I've just got to play. South African varieties.
Gorgeous.
Ixias and Tritonias. These get to about this high, so you make sure that you put them into the back of a bed. Don't go and put them at the front. And if you're putting it into a pot, you need quite a big pot because they get quite tall. That's the other thing. So we are going to show you how to plant in a pot. But what are the most important things for you when it comes to planting your veggies out?
Well, for us, you've got to wait about 4 to 6 weeks to actually get the vegetables. If you're going to plant in trays, and you're going to put your seeds in trays, 4 to 6 weeks does it. In winter, it takes a bit longer to grow, but once they can be smaller than this and they can go in the ground, and then they're good to go. And you want that to start happening in about March, latest beginning of April.
And soil prep, of course, for both.
Absolutely.
Lots of plants here.
But you're going to show the soil prep.
I'm soil prep, but I'm talking about soil prep in your beds as well.
Oh, yes.
Use the best compost you can get. Whatever you're planting, always go for a good organic compost. Dig it in well, leave it, get rid of the weeds, and then start thinking about planting.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to plant something in a pot.
Yeah.
Because you can plant anything in a pot.
Yes. And especially bulbs in a pot. They're so useful. You can put them inside. I know that you're going to do the narcissus. Which one is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to be doing the hyacinths.
Hyacinth, and they're just so beautiful.
Because they smell so amazing. And you can grow them outside and then take them inside once they've started flowering. So the smell just permeates your entire house, which is great. Now, the most important thing when it comes to planting bulbs in a pot is you need good drainage. So you need to have a hole in the bottom, at least one hole in the bottom. A lot of the plastic pots have got 3 holes, so that makes it a lot easier. Then, what I like to do, first of all, is put in these things. They're called hydrocorals. It's a nice word to say. They're basically just a little like clay balls which help with aeration. They help make sure that your drainage holes don't get stuck.
Water absorption is
water absorption. I tend to put this stuff mix it into my soil as well because it just helps with keeping water going.
Okay.
So a little bit of that in the bottom. Okay. Yeah. See, look. Got them in the bottom there. Okay, just a nice little healthy amount at the bottom, and make sure they don't fall out the bottom. Then, using potting soil. Okay. Do not take soil out of your garden. You don't want to be doing that because the soil is the wrong medium to grow your bulbs in. Sure, if you're planting your bulbs into the soil, that's fantastic. But for this, you want something which is friable, which has got lots of air in it, okay, because you don't want your bulbs to drown because they breathe through the roots. And you're going to plant into this potting soil, and you could use this as well for yours.
Yeah, the
exactly
Pocon pot ground is honestly exceptional quality. The friability of that is just perfect for bulbs or for seed, vegetable seed.
So we've got it like that. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to put 3 bulbs in this. Of course, you can grow hyacinths on water, but we're not getting into that today because what we're doing is we are going to have this pot coming inside. Now, when it comes to your bulbs, okay, remember, look at the actual outside of the pot. You've got everything that you need to know on here, okay? When you plant them, it's got it there. When they're going to flower, it's got it there. Whether they're good for in a pot or not, it's got a little pot symbol. What kind of conditions you need to put them in, whether it should be in full sun, semi-shade, and dappled shade. And on the back of the pack as well, it tells you how big they get, and it tells you how far apart you should plant them if you have them in the garden. But obviously, as I said, when it comes to a pot, you can put them a little bit closer. Pointy end up. This is a true bulb. You'll see the pointy end is up. If you're ever confused about it, you can always plant it on the side. These little things pull themselves around with their roots so that they grow in the right place. Bed them down nicely. Where are they gone? Come back here. Okay, so we're going to have 3 of them.
You can plant them quite close together.
Yeah, we can. We're going to put 3 in here because we want to get, it's quite a nice big pot for these. Then what you want to do is you're going to fill the rest of the pot up with soil. But that's how big your bulb is, that's how much soil you want to put on top of it. And that's the rule of thumb for the majority of bulbs, with the exception of some that like to have their head and shoulders out of the soil. Yeah. But that much soil is going to be going on top.
That's about 2 centimeters.
Well, it depends on the size of the bulb, really.
Oh, does it actually count?
Yeah.
Does it have to be
If
half the size of the bulb?
If you've got a little bulb this size, then you'll just put that much soil on the top.
Oh, so it's okay.
But just don't make them go down too deep, and make sure if you're in the garden that your soil is well draining. That's why we keep saying compost. Put compost into the soil. All we're going to do then is put more soil on the top here. This wonderful potgrond. Love it. It feels so good as well.
Mel, would you put any fertilizer in there over and above there?
Well, when you're doing it first, you can mix in a little bit of the bulb food. And I use bulb food because it's been specially formulated specifically to actually get your bulbs growing.
Right.
So you can take some of this, a little bit, the instructions on the back as well, sprinkle some on, and then what we've got to do is just water it in well.
Okay.
Then you leave it. Okay, watering is key when you're planting bulbs. So if you've got them in the garden or in your pot, make sure first of all that your pot doesn't dry out. You want it to pop your finger in, feel. If it's not moist, then you want to water it. And you water it so that the water comes out the bottom when you're doing it in a pot.
Same as seeds. So we do the same thing.
And if you're watering in the garden, they say 40 minutes 4 times a week, and don't forget. Because, well, I find it a bit of a hit and miss affair sometimes, I have to be honest with you, and they seem to still grow. But that is the rule of thumb. You need to make sure that when your bulb is growing, I've got one out here, when it's growing, the roots come out, the roots are going to come down to there. So you're not watering just that much where the soil's on the top and the bulb is there. You want to get down into the root zone.
Right.
So you need to let it water, the water percolate all the way down through to where the roots are here, which means you need to leave a sprinkler on nice and lightly so it just soaks down into the ground. And that's it. If you want to put a bit of colour until the bulbs start popping through, you can plant like a couple of pansies or violas, which of course you have in your gardens as well because they're edible.
They're fantastic. Companions are key. They really do help for pest control, etc. So having some of these bulbs next to your vegetable garden is really amazing. I mean, they smell good, they look good, and you've got to have the aesthetics as well. It's really important. What we would add is the Pocon vegetable garden fertilizer. That's fantastic, it's organic, it's just wonderful, and it works. And we'd put it on top of this very potting soil, and just literally like salting your food. You know, that's how you throw it on top. Absolutely, it's fantastic
a little bit of
stuff.
Well, the thing is with this pot soil, the pot front, okay, this has also been specially formulated that it has enough food in it to actually keep the bulbs growing.
That's fantastic.
So you don't need to put anything else at the time. The most important time to actually fertilize your bulbs is when they're finished flowering.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then they need to bulk up for the next year.
Oh, yeah.
So at this stage, if you've got it in your good potting soil, you should be a for away. When it comes to your veggies, okay?
Yes.
What are the problems that you might see happening every now and then, and how would you go about not making sure that they don't actually continue?
You know, the rule of thumb here is compost is king. You use the right soil, you have that beautiful quality in terms of food, microbes, etc. Your plants won't struggle. But the key thing that people do is they don't water consistently, and that's a big one. And as you said, watering is really important. So the key thing is you've got to water, and you've got to be consistent. You can't just surface water. You know, you move that soil 2 centimeters to the side and it will be absolutely dry. If that happens, make sure, as Mel says, let it percolate through. Let it run out of the bottom of the pot, or make sure that it really goes deep into your soil if you're going to plant in the ground. When you have inconsistency, too little food in your soil, too much food in your soil, too little water, too much water, that generally causes problems. Yeah. And, you know, when there's, you know, this variation in soil temperatures, cold nights, warm days, that can also cause problems.
So look after your little seedlings.
Look after your seedlings.
By the way, you've got a beautiful pot here, but as you can see, this pot has no holes. Okay, so if you want to plant in a beautiful pot and you're using either bulbs or veggies, you can take your plastic pot like this, as long as it's got drainage. Put a couple of stones in the bottom here so that when you put your pot into it, it stands it out of the water, because you just want to make sure you have drainage. Yeah. And then you pop your pot inside there and it looks beautiful. But you can't plant straight into that pot.
You'd actually do exactly what you did for vegetable seeds.
Exactly the same.
You'd put those little corals in the bottom. You'd put this amazing soil, you plant your seeds. The instructions are very clear at the back on both brands, the Linda's Original Seed, the Frankie Cementi. Very clear instructions, how deep you plant the seed, how far apart you plant the plants. Very, very clear what companions to use, but you can just see over here what companions you can use. They're amazing. So you've got all the information, when to plant them, the sun, the shade, etc. Semi-shade. No vegetables grow in shade.
Yeah, and
what bulbs grow? Yeah, what are the
when it comes to the bulbs, mostly you're looking at either full sun, and when we talk about full sun, it means like at least 6 to 8 hours a day, which is what vegetables need. Yeah. Okay. When it says semi-shade, I would always suggest that you plant where they're not going to be getting harsh afternoon sunlight. So you plant it where you're going to get morning sun, dappled shade. So underneath, like your daffodils can go underneath trees. You get various other little blue star flowers, snowdrops and snowflakes. You'd put those underneath your trees as well. But it does tell you on the pack. Now, some that need lots of sun, of course, are things like ranunculus, which I know is an absolute favorite here in South Africa. And even though the bulbs are slightly different size, all it means is that you might get more stems off the bigger bulb. And in fact, these aren't bulbs. These are, what are these? These are like corms and things, okay?
Yeah, they look like corms.
So you get more stems coming out. With the same thing with your chinks as well, the chinker and cheese, as we call them here. With the bigger bulbs, you'll get 2 or 3 stems more, which means more flower power, but it doesn't necessarily mean that your flowers are going to be bigger. It just means your stems are going to be bigger and you may have a few more. That's easy. So, do you want to see what else I've got here? So, ranunculus, chinker and cheese, Dutch iris, which of course is an exotic, which are beautiful. Muscari, which grow very, very low. I love putting these with the blue star flowers in lovely swathes. And don't just do it one by one by one in a nice line. Throw them in the air. Where they land, plant them. Make it look natural. Oh, and for scent, of course, don't forget freesias. Gorgeous. I'm going to have to give this one to Linda for her to take home because she's such a beautiful petal. She needs this in her life.
That's fantastic.
Catch us again on the next one. We'll teach you all you need to know. And trust me, 2 blondes can do it. Anybody can.
Absolutely.